Hi, Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net, and today we want to look at the backhand of Stan Wawrinka, just coming off of his Australian Open win, and look at some of the things that he does differently on his backhand, and one of the keys to generating all that pace on the one-hander, something he does different than the rest of the guys on the tour. So we have Stan on the left and Grigor Dimitrov on the right, and what you're going to see is a big difference in the amount of hip rotation that Wawrinka uses. So early on, the preparation is very similar. We can see with both guys, they get a full turn position here. They get their hips sideways, they get the racket up. It looks very, very similar at this stage of the swing. The difference from here moving forward is I want you to watch Wawrinka's back leg or his left leg and his hips and the amount of rotation that he gets through this stage to the contact, and then look at his position of his hips and his shoulders compared to Dimitrov. And what we see at contact with the ball is that Stan's shoulders are more open and his hips are more open to the court than Dimitrov is at the same exact time. He's a little bit more closed off with both his hips and his shoulders. We just switched over to a view of Wawrinka and Tommy Haas, and Haas is a great backhand, but you can see in the drop phase here, when that racket comes down, the orange arrow, Wawrinka is going to turn his hips and shoulders more than Haas. He's going to rotate on his backhand more than most of these guys traditionally do. So we'll watch here to contact as well. You can see that at the contact point that Stan does have his chest and shoulders more open to the net as well as his hips compared to Haas. And then as they both follow through, you can see he opens up more as he finishes, which can also help with the recovery. And we switch over to a view of Stan with Roger Federer here from the back. And what I want you to look at is Stan's back leg or that left hip. And watch how when that racket drops here, watch how much he rotates to start the forward swing. So look at Roger, look at Stan, and watch Stan really rotate with that back leg into the contact point here, and then look at his chest and shoulders, how much more open to the net they are at contact compared to Roger. And then you'll also see the same thing at the finish. Stan finishes, and his chest and his shoulders and hips are more open to the net than Federer. So we've switched over to a view of Stan with Richard Gasquet, and the reason we brought Gasquet up is because he does a similar thing with the back hip that Wawrinka does. He opens up a little bit more consistently and gets that back leg involvement. So we can see Gasquet is taking that back hip and he's starting to rotate on the shot, similar to what we see with Wawrinka, except the difference is that Wawrinka has his chest more open and his hips a little bit more open than Gasquet does. So again, Wawrinka's rotating on these backhands more than anybody else is and more consistently than anyone else is. And then at the finish position, we can see Gasquet does a nice job here of finishing and having that recovery position where his hips and shoulders are facing the net a little bit more than some of the other players out there. So some of the keys to remember from the Wawrinka backhand are first, that from the power position here, he does a great job of uncoiling his hips into the shot and getting more hip and shoulder rotation into his backhand, which starts with his back leg. The second thing you want to remember is that Wawrinka has his hips and shoulders more rotated into the ball at contact than any other player on the tour. He's facing the net more than anyone else. He's really driving from that back leg, and you can see it in this position right here. And the last advantage of this position is that because Stan is more open at contact with the ball and rotates more on it, he's following through and finishing with his body more open to the net, which allows for an easier recovery than a lot of other one-handed players who stay sideways when they finish their backhand. I'm Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net, and those are some of the keys to the Wawrinka backhand and differences between him and the other players on tour.
Thank you.